Hello everybody, and welcome to our class on number sequence investigations. It's going to be a nice short little lesson. It's a really easy topic. It can be a little bit tricky, but just follow the steps that I show you and you should be fine. So we can see here we have our first number sequence. And in a number sequence, we are concerned with two things. We have the sequence itself, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, ... And the sequence goes on till infinity. And we could recognize the sequence easily as the 2 times table, sure we can. But then we have this, the nth term of the sequence. And the nth term basically says, well, okay, this is the first term, this is the second term, this is the third term, this is the fourth term. And it's this nth term is what we're going to be looking at. Because eventually we're going to have to find out what the 11th term is and essentially what the nth term is. And the nth term will be able to give us a formula so that we could find any term that we want. So number sequence investigation is all about finding that formula that describes the sequence. And what's the first step that we should do when we're given a sequence? Well, you know that the formula will have to have n somewhere in it. So let's go ahead and just put n by each term. So this is the first term, the second term, the third term, the fourth term, the fifth term. And I know that my formula is going to have n in there. So now what I do is I put n, and now I'll ask myself, well, what do I have to do to n in order to get this number? So in order to get 2, what do I do to this number 1? Well, I should multiply 2. Okay, I'll multiply 2 by 1 and I'll get 2. Okay, that's fine. But what do I have to do to this 2 to get 4? Well, I'll have to multiply 2 again. And what do I have to do for this 3 to get 6? Well, I'll have to multiply by 2. And what do I have to do to this 4 to get 8? I have to multiply by 2, multiply by 2. So I could see here that no matter what n is, I have to multiply by 2. And so if n is 11, I would have to multiply by 2 to give me 22. And of course, the formula for this sequence would be whatever n is, I multiply 2 by it. So the formula will be 2n. And that way we could actually get any term that we want, whether it's the 100th term or the 1000th term. And you can see we have a little hint here. Look out for multiples of 2. Multiples of 2 is something that they like to bring in exam. Alright, the sequences that they are going to bring will generally be easy. So try not to overthink it, because overthinking will have you thinking too complicated and you'll probably miss it. But look at the first step that I did is I actually put the nth number, the n right there, and then I worked on that n number to see what I could do to get the actual sequence. Okay? So let's try another sequence. We have another sequence here, and we could see 3, 6, 9, 12. Well, it looks 3-ish. It looks like multiples of 3, but let's make sure. The first thing I'm gonna do is put the n number here. And please remember these steps. These steps are what is going to help you. Because you know that in the final formula, you want to have n in there. So n has to be multiplied or divided or added or subtracted to get your sequence, right? So again, what do to n in order to get 3? Well, I multiply by 3. And I'll check here, what do I do to n in order to get 3 and multiply by 3? And once I do the first 2 terms and I see that I have to do the same thing, chances are that it'll be the same way for the rest of them. So really and truly, figuring out the first 2 terms are super important to see if it matches up with the rest of them. So I could see here 6 trees, the 6th term is going to be 18. And so the formula will be, I'll have to take 3 and multiply it by n. So I end up get 3n as the formula. This is just the 3 times table. And of course the hint here is to look out for multiples of 3. So these are 2 things that you want to look out for, multiples of 2 and multiples of 3, right? So let's check out this other term, this other sequence here, and it's going to get a little bit more complicated, right? So we can see here that we have the sequence and we have the nth term. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down the nth term. 1, 2, this is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth. And I'm going to see, well, what can I do to the nth term in order to get this? Well, I could multiply by 3. All right, 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, no problem. But then let me see, if I multiply by 3, 3 times 2 is 6. So that doesn't work for the second term, right? It doesn't work for the second term at all. So I know that multiplying by 3 probably is not going to help, right? So what else I could do? Well, what if, let's try multiples of 2. What if I multiply by 2? 2 times 1 is 2, but then I'll add 1 to get 3. All right, well, let's see if this works for the next term. If I multiply by 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and I'll add 1 to get 5. Hey, it works, right? So if it works for the third one, well, then I know it's correct. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Yes, it does. And 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1. So you see, at first I tried something and it didn't work. And you could expect that. You could expect to try 1 or 2 times and you might not get it to work. And you can see, in order to get it to work, I tried multiples of 2 and then I added a number, right? Now, the hint here is always look for n in the sequence. You could see that the first thing I did was I wrote down my n number, because I know that that n number has to be there. And so the 9th number will be 9 2s are 18 plus 1, which is 19. And so the nth number will be 2 times n plus 1. And so the actual formula is 2n plus 1. So let's try this sequence now and see how this works out. And we can see here that the hint is look out for addition and subtraction as well. So you have your multiples of 2, you have your multiples of 3, you're making sure that you're using your n number, and you're also looking out for addition and subtraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down that n number. 1, 2, 3, this is the 4th, this will be the 11th, this will be the nth. And then I'll see, well, what can I do to this number to get the sequence? Well, I could multiply by 5. 5 1s are 5. And if I do the same thing here, 5 2s are 10. That doesn't work. 5 3s are 15. So I guess multiplying by 5 is not cool. What if I multiply by 2? 2 1s are 2. And then I could add 3 to give me 5. So 2 1s are 2 plus 3 is 5. So I have to try the same thing here. 2 2s are 4 plus 3 is 7. So no, this doesn't work at all. So let me try multiples of 3 then. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So let me try multiples of 3. And remember, this number here is just the n. I just basically copied the n term, right? Because remember, the n term has to be in the formula. So let me try multiples of 3. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2, that'll give me 5. 3 2s are 6 plus 2, that'll give me 8. Yes, so it did work. And remember, whatever I tried for the first one, I have to have the same thing for all of them. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, and 3 times 4 3s are 12, plus 2 is 14. Yes, we broke the code, we figured it out. So this here would be 3 times 11, which is 33, plus 2 is 35. And therefore the final thing will be 3 times n plus 2. 3n plus 2. So you can see here that the first couple of times I actually did not get it. And that is what you have to do. You work through some of the wrong ones first before you can get the right one. And what did I do? I put down my my n number, and then I tried multiples of 2, and I tried adding a number, and it didn't work. So then I tried multiples of 3, and I tried adding a number, and it worked. Right? So if you just remember these steps, no matter what sequence they bring for you in exam, it should work out pretty okay. Well, let's try this one. And the first thing I'm going to do is write down my nth term. So this is the first, the second, the third, the fourth. This will be the 10th, and this will be the nth. So I could try 2, but I could immediately see that multiples of 2, well, maybe it might help, because 2 times 1 is 2, and if I minus 1, then I'll get 1. So 2n minus 1, alright. But it wouldn't work here though, because 2 2s are 4 minus 1. That is interesting, right? So 2 2s are 4 minus 1 is 3, so multiples of 2 doesn't work here, or at least multiples of 2 minus 1 doesn't work here. So let me try multiples of 3. If I multiply n by 3, 3 times 1 is 3, and I'll have to minus 2 in order to get 1. Okay, so if I multiply 3 times 2, I'll get 6, and 6 minus 2 will give me 4. Yes, it will. So that is interesting. It works for the first 2 terms, right? 3 1s are 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 2s are 6 minus 2 is 4, but 3 3s are 9 minus 2 is not 9. You know? 3 4s are 12 minus 2. Okay. So I guess that this, I mean, it worked for the first 2, but it didn't work for the rest of them. So I guess that 3n minus 2 is not it. So let me try, what else we could try? We could try multiples of 2. We already tried multiples of 2. We already tried multiples of 3. So let's try this last hint here. Look out for squares. Alright, look out for squares. So if I take 1, what will I need to multiply by 1 in order to get 1? Well, I can multiply 1. What do I need to multiply by 2 in order to get 4? Well, I can multiply by 2. What do I need to multiply by 3 to get 9? 3. Hey, look at that. They're all square numbers. And so whatever n is, I multiply it by itself. So what do I need for the 10th term? I have to multiply by the 10th. So that means that this 10th term will be 100. And so for the nth term, I have to just multiply it by itself. And so the formula for this is actually n squared. So we come out to one of our last hints here. Look out for squares. You know, we're looking out for, we tried multiples of 2, we tried multiples of 3, we tried adding, we tried subtracting numbers. It didn't work, but now we looked out for squares and we saw that we got the answer with squares. So you see those 5 basic hints there are the 5 basic hints that you should be thinking about when you do a sequence exam. And so I have a couple of sequence questions here. I'd like you to pause the video and do these questions and see if you can get it right, and then just press play for the answer. Alright, so let's check out the first sequence here. And in this first sequence, I'm gonna write the n term. So this is the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. And what do we want to find? We want to find the nth term. So we want to find the formula n. Right? So the first thing I did was write down the nth term, and then I want to see what can I do to the n in order to get that number in the sequence. Well, I could multiply by 2 here. Alright. But it wouldn't work in the second one. 2 times 2 is 4, not 5. So multiplying by 2 alone does not really help. Right? But what if I multiply by 3? 3 times 1 is 3 minus 1 will give me 2. Okay. So let me try multiples of 3 here. 3 times 2 is 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay. 3 3s are 9 minus 1 is 8. Yes. And 4 3s are 12 minus 1 is 11. So I could safely say that this first sequence is going to be 3 multiplied by n minus 1. And I could get any term in the sequence I want from that. In the second sequence here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put my nth term, 1, 2, 3, 4, and n. And I'm going to see what I could do to the n in order to get the number in the sequence. And of course, I multiply by 2 will give me 2. But if I multiply by 2 in this one, I'll get 4, and that's not it. I want to get 5. So these two are really similar, 2 and 5, and the sequence changes here. So let's try 3. If I multiply by 3, and I minus 1, I'll get the 2. If I multiply by 3 and I minus 1, I'll get the 5. But if I multiply by 3 here and minus 1, I'm certainly not going to get 10. So I tried multiples of 3. And I tried multiples of 2, and nothing seemed to work. I tried adding numbers and subtracting numbers. So let me try the square. If I square 1, 1 times 1 is 1, plus 1 will give me 2. Okay, so let's square this. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 will give me 5. Hey, it works. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17. So whatever n is, I have to multiply that by n and plus 1. And therefore, the formula for this is actually going to be n squared plus 1. That is the formula for that sequence there. So I tried my multiples of 2, I tried my multiples of 3, I tried adding and subtracting numbers, and I saw that it didn't work. So then I tried square numbers, and I saw that a combination of squaring the number and adding worked. So yay! Let's try the third one now. Okay, so with this third sequence here, the first thing I'm going to do is write the nth term, 1, 2, 3, 4, and n. And I'm going to see, okay, let's try multiples of 2. 2 times 1 is 2, and I'll have to minus 1 to give me 1. Alright, 2 times 2 is 4, and I'll have to minus 1 to give me 3. Okay, it works. 2 times 3 is 6, and I'll have to minus 1 to give me 5, yes. And 2 4s, 8 minus 1 gives me 7. So I can see here that by first trying multiples of 2 and then subtracting 1, 2n minus 1 works out to be my final sequence. So you can see here that once you follow the hints that I've given you and try the steps of, look out for multiples of 2, then look for multiples of 3, always look out for adding and subtracting numbers, and then lastly you can look out for square numbers. Once you look out for these things, you should be able to tackle any question in the CSEC exam. And let's try an actual CSEC question here, right? We don't actually need, it comes with a whole diagram and such, and the diagram just basically explains, the diagram just basically explains the table, right? So just look at the table here, and you could see, what do we want? We actually want 2 formulas, right? We have the figure, the first figure, the second figure, the third figure, the fourth figure. So this here is your n, your nth term, right? They want the 20th figure, and then they want the nth term, or the formula. And you can see that we have 2 formulas we have to find. We have to find a formula for the area of the triangles given this sequence here. And then we have to find a formula for the number of pins in the base, and you can see that the triangles are made from pins. And as I say, we don't really need to read the question or look at the diagram really, because the table actually describes everything for us, right? Of course, in exam, please read the question, right? But we can see here that we have one sequence for the area of the triangle that we have to find a formula for. And we have to find another sequence for the number of pins in the base that we have to find a formula for. Once we can find that nth formula, then we can actually work out any one of these questions here, right? So how about you pause the video and take a minute and try to figure this one out, right? So give the video a pause and I'll give you a minute. So let's try to find the number of pins in the base, right? We'll find the formula, this formula here, for the number of pins in the base. And I could see that they kind of gave me what the formula is. Yeah, and so I have my final sequence here: 3, 5, 7, ... and I'll put n over here. And then I have my nth term. Remember, this is the first, the second, and the third. So this is the first, this is the second, and this is the third. What do I have to do to n in order to get this number? Well, look, they actually gave you the answer, right? Look, you have your nth term here, the first, the second, and the third. And what do you have to do to n? You have to multiply it by 2 and then add 1. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. And 2 3s are 6 plus 1 is 7. And so we could tell here that the sequence for this is going to be 2n plus 1. And once we find that, once we could find 2n plus 1, we can literally work out any other thing here. So we could see that the 20th term is going to be 2 times 20 plus 1, which is 41. We can see here that this here, we can't really work this out because we don't know what n is, but we do know what this is. So we'll have to find the formula for this sequence here. And they didn't make this one as easy as the last one. They didn't tell us, right? And of course, they didn't tell us what the formula is, what we did to n. So we're gonna have to do this the old school way. 1, 4, 9, ... And of course, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3 in terms of the nth, and this will be the nth. And look at this. I could immediately see here that 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 1 squared is 1. So I looked out for square numbers and I saw that n squared is actually the final formula here. So this is going to be n squared. And so this here will be 20 squared, which is 400. And so if this is n squared and this is 100, well then n here is going to be 10, because 10 squared gives me 100. And now that I have n here, I could work out, well, this on this side 2n plus 1, which is 21. And then I could say, well, 4 squared is 16, and on this side 2n plus 1, 4 2s are 8 and 1 is 9. And so I'm able to figure out my entire table here. And you could see that basically in a CSEC question, they will stay with these simpler sequences. So you remember the hints. You look out for multiples of 2, multiples of 3. You can look out for addition and subtraction of numbers. And you also look out for square numbers. And that is it for the investigation of sequences. A nice short video. And of course, if you guys have any problems or any questions, you can always hit me up in class. And I'll see you soon.